2. We're going to start chapter 31 today, and the title of this chapter is Reptiles and Birds. So we're moving right up through our vertebrate groups, and we're going to start with reptiles. So reptiles is going to be our first section, and so we're going to look at what are the characteristics of a reptile. So what makes a reptile, what it is, and if you can remember our examples of reptiles, we had you look at them yesterday in class. We have our snakes and our lizards, as well as our crocodiles, and our turtles are going to be our main examples of reptiles. So a reptile, just kind of some general characteristics, has dry, scaly skin. So this is a really important part here, their dry, scaly skin. They have lungs, so again, that's another big characteristic. And they have terrestrial eggs, which just means eggs that they can lay on land. So this is actually a huge thing for this group, is terrestrial eggs. So I would definitely need to know that, or definitely think you would need to know that. And they have several membranes that surround the egg and protect it. And these characteristics will enable our reptiles to live their lives entirely out of water. So this is a big thing for this. This is our first group of animals that can live their entire lives out of water. So that's a lot of big steps taken in this group in terms of evolution to where we're currently at with our land animals today. So reptilian skin is dry and covered with thick protective scales, so that's the function of the scale. Fish have scales as well that serve as protection, same with reptiles. And also it'll prevent the loss of body water in dry environments, so scale helps them retain as much water because a lot of reptiles live in very dry environments. And the scaly layer of skin, however, does not grow, so it must be shed periodically as the reptile increases in size. So that's kind of similar to an exoskeleton of a lot of our arthropods. They shed their exoskeleton as they grow. Reptiles will actually shed their skin as they grow as well. So those are all some big characteristics of our reptiles. So now we're going to look at the evolution of reptiles. So reptiles were some of the first vertebrates that were not dependent on water for reproduction. So every other animal group so far up to this point have had to have water for reproduction. So reptiles were our first vertebrates that did not need this. And our first reptile fossils date back to the Carboniferous period. If you remember, the Carboniferous period was kind of known as the age of the amphibians. So towards the end of the Carboniferous period is when kind of some of those amphibians kind of went through some evolution. We started to see our reptile groups form. And then they kind of at the end of the time when the amphibians were the dominant group. And so then our first main group of reptiles, kind of one of our most famous group, are actually the dinosaurs. And these first appeared during the late Triassic and Jurassic periods. And this was a great adaptive radiation of reptiles took place. And this era, which includes our Triassic and Jurassic periods, is called the Age of the Reptiles. So this is when, again, adaptive radiation just means that the reptiles really spread out at this point in time. They actually they dominated, they took over. There was a lot of land to kind of be taken for grabs. There wasn't a lot of people, or not a lot of people, wasn't a lot of organisms really using the land whatsoever. So there's a lot of space for them to kind of adapt and take control and basically take over the earth at this time. So this would just be kind of what some of the reptiles would look like, again, more dinosaur, what we call dinosaurs today. And so dinosaur structure and behavior varied. So this just means that dinosaurs, there was a huge variety of them, and none of them were really the same. So they ranged in size from very small. So there are some dinosaurs that were the size of a chicken, and then there's some dinosaurs that are absolutely enormous in size with multiple tons in weight. And they either ran on two legs, so that would be what we call a biped. So our bipedal, so two legs or either ran on two legs or four legs. And four legs would be what we call a quadruped. And some ate leafy plants, like our big gigantic ones are actually the ones that ate the plants, or others fed on other animals, like our examples from Jurassic Park, like the velociraptor. Some lived in small family groups, so sometimes they like to hang out together. And some may have actually had feathers, so this is going to be kind of a big deal when we get to talking about our birds and how they came to be, because we now have evidence that some dinosaurs may have actually had feathers instead of scales, so maybe they gave rise to our birds. And so of all the dinosaurs, they belong to one of two major groups. So you either were one or the other in terms of a dinosaur. And the first one is Ornithischia. Ornithischia is how you say that. And the orn, O-R-N, that means bird at the beginning. So those are bird-hipped dinosaurs. Or you were a Saurischiia, or a lizard-hipped dinosaur. So when we think of like Tyrannosaurus rex, Brontosaurus, it just means kind of like lizard, and dinosaur actually just means terrible lizard. So that's where that word came from. So saur just means lizard. So you're either one or two groups of dinosaurs. And at the end of our Cretaceous, a mass extinction occurred that killed the dinosaurs as well as other plant and animal groups. And we now have strong evidence that that extinction was actually a meteor that hit in Mexico. So we're going to take a look at what evidence we have for that today. And so that is it for our first part about dinosaurs. Let me know if you have any questions.